The bright red wedding symbol was still pasted on the window, yet I sat alone all night in the icy bridal room. My newlywed husband, David, spent the night in the next room accompanying his distant cousin, Lena, who had scraped her knee. I was a military wife. He was an officer. This marriage was something my family secured only after pulling countless strings. In everyone's eyes, I was the one who should have felt grateful, the one marrying above my station. In my past life, I believed the same. So I endured. On our wedding night, when he abandoned me to take care of his cousin, I endured. The next day, when he tried to take the fabric vouchers my mother had given me as part of my dowry to make new clothes for the frightened Lena, I endured that too. I endured my mother-in-law's constant disdain, endured Lena's manipulative sweetness, endured David's repeated coldness and betrayal. I sent him my salary, every subsidy my parents gave me, everything, all to David's family. I only wanted the reputation of a virtuous wife, someone who wouldn't tarnish his military career. And the result? I worked myself into illness. When I needed money most to seek treatment, David's family couldn't give me even a penny. David, however, used the money I had saved through hardship and frugality to buy Lena a house in the city. Their entire family moved into the new home, while I died alone on a cold hospital bed. In the moment I closed my eyes, the only thought I had was that if I could live again, I would never allow myself to be this pathetic. I never expected it to actually happen. When I opened my eyes again, I had returned to that absurd wedding night. The door creaked open, and David walked in with the cold night air still clinging to him. He was still wearing his brand-new military uniform, his sharp features full of impatience. "Why aren't you asleep yet?" he demanded, as if my staying awake had been a serious mistake. I lifted my eyes and quietly looked at him. This face had once been the spell I was obsessed with for half a lifetime, yet now it felt painfully ironic. "I was waiting for you," I said calmly. He paused, probably not expecting such a composed reaction from me. In my past life, I cried the whole night and woke the next morning with swollen eyes. When he saw me, the undisguised disgust on his face was unforgettable. "Waiting for me? Lena is weak. She scraped a big patch of skin. I had to stay with her until she finished her medication," he said, completely matter of fact, as if that were 100 times more important than our wedding night. "She finished her medication?" I asked. "Yes, she's asleep now." "Then can you fulfill your responsibility as a husband?" I asked. David's frown deepened. He looked me up and down, his gaze filled with scrutiny and unfamiliarity. "Emily, what's wrong with you today? Why are you talking like this? Aren't you usually the sensible one? Lena is my cousin. We grew up together. She's a guest here. She got hurt. What's wrong with me taking care of her?" I laughed. The word sensible was a poisoned blade that had stabbed me all my life. "It's nothing. Go to sleep." I didn't want to say another useless word. I lay down, pulled the blanket over myself, and turned my back to him. David seemed irritated by my attitude, but after fussing around all night, he was exhausted. He let out a heavy grunt and lay down fully dressed on the other side of the bed. We didn't say a word the entire night. A clear barrier separated the two of us. I kept my eyes shut, but my mind was racing. I didn't return to fight with him, nor to compete for affection. I came back for myself, to reclaim everything that belonged to me, to live properly this time. My dowry, aside from the bedding and furniture, the most important things were the few hundred yuan my mom secretly tucked into the bottom of my trunk, along with 100 feet of fabric vouchers. In the early 1980s, that amount of money and those vouchers were a fortune. In my past life, early the next morning, David's mother, my mother-in-law Linda, joined forces with David, pried open my dowry trunk, and took every bit of the money and fabric vouchers. There was no way I would let them get their way in this lifetime. Just as dawn barely broke, I heard Lena's delicate syrupy voice coming from the next room, mixed with Linda's doting words of comfort to her precious darling. I immediately got up and quietly opened my dowry trunk. It was brand new, still decorated with the red double happiness sticker. I pulled out the little metal box hidden at the very bottom. Inside was a stack of crisp bills and a thick pile of fabric vouchers. That was all the security I had in this life. I carefully hid the money and vouchers close to my body, then grabbed a few sheets of old newspaper, crumpled them up, and stuffed them into the now empty metal box. After that, I restored everything in the trunk to its original appearance. Only once all of that was done did I slowly begin brushing my hair. The person in the mirror still looked young. Her eyes carried none of the exhaustion or numbness from the last lifetime. Only a cold, sharp clarity. A sudden, rough pounding on the door sounded, followed by Linda's loud, grating voice. "Look at the time. You're still sleeping? The sun's already shining on your backside. Hurry up and come out to make breakfast." I ignored her and continued brushing my long hair at an unhurried pace. Soon, the door was shoved open with a loud bang. Linda stood at the doorway with her hands on her hips, her triangular eyes glaring fiercely at me. "What kind of daughter-in-law are you? You expect your mother-in-law to serve you? Are you deaf? I've been calling you forever and you didn't answer." I looked at her through the mirror and slowly said, "Mom, why didn't you knock before coming in?" Linda clearly didn't expect me to talk back. She froze for a moment, then her face flushed bright red with anger. "You little brat, your wings are getting hard, huh? How dare you talk to me like that? David, look at the wife you married." David walked in behind her with a dark expression. He had already changed out of his military uniform and was now wearing a white shirt, which only emphasized how tall and straight he stood. But the words that came out of his mouth were sharp and cutting. "Emily, how can you talk to Mom like that? Apologize." I stood up, turned around, and looked calmly at the two of them. "What did I say wrong?" Linda pointed at me, so furious she couldn't speak. David's face grew even darker. He took a deep breath, clearly holding back his anger. "Enough. Forget that for now. Take out your fabric vouchers." Just as I expected, I pretended not to understand. "Why do you need the fabric vouchers?" Before David could answer, Linda rushed to speak first, her tone full of indignation as if everything was perfectly reasonable. "What do you mean, why? To make a new dress for Lena, of course. She's a young, unmarried girl, came all the way here to attend your wedding, and she ended up falling and getting hurt. She was scared half to death. Making her a new dress to calm her nerves is the least we can do." I almost laughed out loud. Scraping her knee required using the fabric vouchers my mom gave me as part of my dowry to make her a new dress? What kind of logic was that? "Mom, those were part of my dowry. My mother gave them to me," I reminded her. "Your dowry? Once you marry into David's family, you belong to us. Your things are naturally ours too. Stop talking nonsense and hand it over." Linda snapped, stepping forward as if she intended to rummage through my things herself. David stopped her, maybe still wanting to maintain the appearance of being the educated one. He looked at me, his tone slightly gentler. David's tone softened only slightly, but it still carried an unquestionable command. "Emily, I know you feel wronged, but Lena isn't an outsider. As her sister-in-law, you should be more understanding. Give her the fabric vouchers first so she can make a new dress. I'll make it up to you once I get my allowance, okay?" I let out a small laugh. "And when is once you get your allowance? How long is that supposed to be? And can your monthly allowance buy 100 feet of fabric?" David's face turned an ugly shade, like darkened liver. Most of his allowance had to be sent home to support his parents and his good-for-nothing younger brother. He barely had any money left for himself. "What kind of attitude is that?" he snapped, anger rising because I had struck a nerve. "I'm just stating the facts," I said, meeting his eyes without fear or humility. "The fabric vouchers are mine. I don't want to give them to you." Lena, who had been hiding by the doorway eavesdropping the entire time, finally stepped into the room. Her eyes were misty, her hand holding onto the doorframe as if her weak, trembling body could collapse any moment. "David, Emily, please don't fight because of me. I don't need a new dress. It was my fault for being careless. It has nothing to do with Emily. If she doesn't want to give them, then forget it. I can wear something old." As she spoke, tears streamed down her cheeks like broken pearls, falling in delicate, pitiful drops. She really was a perfect white lotus in full bloom. David's heart clenched the moment he saw her crying. He immediately turned toward me and glared. "Emily, look at what you've done to Lena. Is your heart made of stone? It's just a few fabric vouchers. Do you really have to be so petty?" Linda chimed in right away, backing him up. "I've never seen such a stingy daughter-in-law. Our family must have had the worst luck in 8 generations to end up with you. If you're not handing them over, then don't expect any breakfast today." I stared at this ugly trio and felt nothing but disgust. I took a deep breath, then unexpectedly smiled. "Fine. You want them, right?" I walked to my dowry trunk and deliberately acted heartbroken as I slowly unlocked it. Linda and Lena's eyes lit up at once, like 2 hungry wolves spotting meat. Even David let out a breath of relief, his expression saying, "Finally, you're being sensible." I opened the trunk and took out the small metal box inside. "The money and the vouchers are all in here," I said. Linda snatched it from my hand immediately and opened it without hesitation. The next second, her shriek nearly shook the roof off. "Why is it just trash paper?" Inside the metal box were only a few crumpled pieces of old newspaper. In disbelief, Linda turned the box upside down, shaking it again and again. When nothing came out, she threw the box onto the floor in fury. "Where's the money? Where are the fabric vouchers? Emily, where did you hide them?" She lunged at me like a madwoman, but I stepped aside easily, dodging her. David stormed toward me with a dark expression and grabbed my wrist, squeezing so hard it felt like he might crush my bones. "Emily, you'd better give me an explanation." I yanked my wrist free and rubbed the red marks left by his grip, then looked at him coldly. "Explain what? You're the ones who wanted to open the trunk. Something went missing, so who am I supposed to ask? You? You were the only one who touched this trunk," Linda shouted. "Oh?" I raised an eyebrow. "Who saw that? It was my wedding night. My husband wasn't even in the room. Who knows if a thief came in?" "Don't talk nonsense," David growled. "There's no way a thief could get into this house." "Well," I said calmly, "you never know." I shot a meaningful glance in Lena's direction. After all, some people were willing to do anything for a little benefit. Lena's face instantly went pale, her lips trembling. "Emily, what do you mean? Are you accusing me?" "I didn't mention any names," I said with a shrug. "That's enough," David snapped as he dragged me aside. Lowering his voice, he spoke through clenched teeth. "Emily, I'm warning you. Stop making a scene. Hand over the things now, or our life together will be impossible." "Threatening me?" I looked at his face, twisted with anger, and found it laughable. "David, our life together became impossible the moment you abandoned me on our wedding night to accompany your cousin." I stopped paying attention to them and walked straight to the wardrobe, taking out the small bundle I had already prepared. "What are you doing?" David asked, warily. "I can't stay in this house anymore," I said calmly. "Where are you going?" "Back to your parents' place to complain." Linda sneered with contempt. "I'm telling you, if you dare step out of this door today, don't ever come back." I wasn't planning on coming back anyway. I opened the bundle and pulled out a folded sheet of paper, unfolding it right in front of them. It was a southbound train ticket. Departure at 10 a.m. this morning. David's pupils shrank sharply. Linda and Lena were stunned as well. They never would have imagined that not only had I hidden the money and fabric vouchers, but I had already bought a train ticket ahead of time. When did you even buy that?" David's voice trembled. "While you were busy whispering sweetly with your cousin," I said. I carefully folded the ticket back into the bundle. "I didn't hide the fabric vouchers. I exchanged them for this ticket, and for money for the trip." Of course, that was a lie. I still had the money and vouchers. They were my seed capital. But I needed to say it to crush any hope they had left. "You useless girl, you actually exchanged the fabric vouchers?" Linda shook with fury, pointing at me, unable to form a complete sentence. "Emily, have you lost your mind?" David finally snapped out of his shock and lunged toward me to grab my bundle. "You're not allowed to leave. Our marriage just started. If you go, how am I supposed to explain myself? What will the unit think of me?" He had only ever cared about his reputation and future. I sidestepped him and let out a cold laugh. "Your reputation matters more than your marriage? Is that it, David? Don't worry, I won't cause trouble for you." I took out another piece of paper from the bundle and slapped it onto the table. "I've already written the divorce request. As long as you file it with the military unit, we can divorce. That way you won't have to worry about a crazy wife ruining your future." The word divorce hit them like a thunderbolt. David and Linda both froze. In this era, divorce was a massive scandal, especially a military divorce. It wouldn't just be humiliating, it would follow someone for their entire life. You dare? David's eyes were bloodshot, like an enraged beast. Emily, I'm telling you, I won't agree to a divorce. If you want to leave, go ahead. When you finally come to your senses, you can come back and apologize to me and Mom. He thought I was still the same woman from my past life, the one he could crush under his thumb. He thought all he had to do was put on a tough face. I had been someone he thought would get scared, someone who would compromise. I looked straight at him and said clearly, word by word, David, you're mistaken. I'm not discussing this with you. I'm telling you. I will divorce you. If you refuse to file the request, then I'll go to your military unit myself and explain everything to your superiors. David's face instantly turned ghostly pale. Interfering with a military marriage was a serious crime. Even if there was no hard evidence of anything between him and Lena, the fact that he disappeared the entire wedding night to stay with his cousin was enough to raise suspicion. If the matter blew up, his entire military career would be over. Linda panicked as well. She had never imagined that her always obedient daughter-in-law would suddenly become this ruthless. You venomous woman, are you trying to destroy our whole family? She screamed, beating her chest and carrying on like the sky was falling. Lena was so terrified she went completely blank, hiding behind David while trembling. I couldn't be bothered to watch their pathetic performance anymore. I picked up my small bundle and headed toward the door without looking back. Stop. David rushed after me, reaching out to grab me. Without turning around, I said coldly, touch me again and see what happens. I guarantee that within half an hour, everyone in this entire compound will hear all about the heroic deeds you pulled off on your wedding night. My voice wasn't loud, but every word was a threat. David immediately froze. He knew I was capable of doing exactly that. I opened the door. The sunlight outside was harsh, but to me it felt like freedom. A few early rising neighbors were already outside. When they saw me walking out with a bundle on my back, curiosity flashed across their faces. Linda followed me to the doorway but didn't dare make a scene like before. She lowered her voice and muttered curses. You ungrateful wretch. You'll get what's coming to you. I didn't look back. I straightened my spine and stepped out of the courtyard, one that had suffocated me for an entire lifetime. Goodbye, David. Goodbye, my foolish past life. The train station was crowded and noisy, filled with all kinds of mingled smells. I clutched the train ticket tightly inside my pocket, my heart pounding with tension and excitement. When the train whistle finally screeched and the cars slowly began to move, watching the platform and the uniformed officers slide backward through the window, I finally felt it. This was real. I had really escaped. I leaned back against the hard seat and watched the fields and villages rush past outside the window. Memories from my past life surged uncontrollably into my mind. I remembered begging David to take me to the hospital when I was seriously ill, but he brushed me off impatiently, saying I shouldn't be so dramatic and should just endure it. I remembered lying alone in a hospital bed on Christmas Eve, fever burning through me, calling his military unit, only for the operator to tell me that David had taken leave to accompany his cousin on a shopping trip at the department store. I remembered that after I died, my soul floated above, watching David and Lena living in the new house I had bought with my own blood and sweat. Lena leaned in his arms, giggling as she said, David, thank goodness that woman died early. Otherwise we'd never have the good life we have today. And David had only tapped her on the nose affectionately and replied, Here's something else. Scene after scene cut into my heart like knives. Tears slid silently down my face, but I didn't wipe them away. Those tears were for the foolish, pitiful Emily of my past life. Starting today, I would live for myself. The train continued heading south, rocking through 3 long days and nights. After 3 long days and nights, the train finally reached its final stop, Shenzhen. The moment I stepped off the train, a gust of hot, humid air rushed over me. In the early 1980s, Shenzhen was still just a small fishing village, with construction sites and dust everywhere. But the air was filled with raw vitality and hope. It was nothing like the small northern town where I had lived for more than 20 years. Everything here signaled a brand new beginning. I found a cheap little hostel to stay in, and the first thing I did was count every bit of money and every fabric voucher I had. Altogether, I had 365 yuan and 100 feet of fabric vouchers. At that time, an average worker's monthly salary was just 30 or 40 yuan. This money was my first pot of gold, what I would rely on to leverage a whole new life. I didn't rush to look for a job. Instead, I spent several days exploring the busiest parts of Shenzhen. I discovered that the clothing markets here were already taking shape. Many traders who came in from Hong Kong brought in stylish new designs from across the border. Their pieces were expensive, but still sold out quickly. Meanwhile, the local clothing shops were still selling old-fashioned, cool cotton shirts and plain blue trousers. That was where the opportunity lay. In my past life, even though I lived poorly and without dignity, I had learned excellent sewing skills just to please David's family. My mom had been a seamstress when she was young, and I grew up watching her work, picking up quite a bit myself. More importantly, I had in my mind the popular fashion trends from the next several decades. I decided to start with making clothes. Using my fabric vouchers and part of my money, I bought a batch of good quality cotton and some cool cotton fabric. Then I gritted my teeth and purchased a second-hand Butterfly brand sewing machine. Since I couldn't stay in the hostel long-term, I rented a small, inexpensive room. During the day, I studied the market, and at night, I sketched designs, cut patterns, and sewed under a dim light. The first batch of clothes I made were bell-bottom pants and batwing tops, styles that were taking the whole country by storm. But in this tiny fishing village, they were considered outrageous. I couldn't afford a shop, so I followed what others did and set up a small stall at the night market. On the first day, no one came near my stall. Occasionally, someone would glance over with curiosity and disdain. "What kind of pants are these? The legs are huge. Looks like something an opera performer would wear." So improper. I didn't get discouraged. I knew new things always needed time for people to accept them. But the second day, and the third day, still, no one asked. I started to feel anxious. I didn't bring much money with me, and every day meant more expenses. If I couldn't sell these clothes soon, I would run out of everything. Just when I was about to lose hope, a turning point appeared. That night, several stylish young women passed by my stall. One of the girls immediately noticed a pair of red bell-bottom pants I had hung up. "Boss, how much are these pants?" 15 yuan, I said, an undeniably high price. "So expensive?" One of her friends muttered. "You can look at the craftsmanship in the fabric," I said calmly. The girl picked up the pants, held them against herself, and rubbed the material between her fingers. She was clearly tempted. She hesitated for a long time, but in the end, she gritted her teeth and bought them. "If they don't look good when I wear them, I'm coming back to find you. Come anytime," I said with a smile. That single sale was like a shot of adrenaline, filling me with hope again. Sure enough, just 2 days later, that girl returned, bringing several friends with her. "Boss, these pants are amazing. When I wore them out, the heads turning were like 200%. All my friends were so jealous. Do you have any other colors?" And just like that, my business opened up. My bell-bottom pants and batwing tops became the hottest items in the entire night market. Every night, crowds of young people gathered around my stall. I earned my first real fortune since coming south, a full 500 yuan. I used that money to expand production. I rented a larger space to serve as both warehouse and workshop, and I hired 2 quick-handed women to help me. Bit by bit, my small business found its footing. Just when I thought life would keep moving forward smoothly, David showed up. That day, I was in my workshop rushing to finish some orders when a neighbor hurried over and told me a man in military uniform was asking for me at the entrance of the alley. My heart tightened. I rushed out. And there he was. David. He looked thinner than he had a few months ago, darker too, but his uniform was still neat and sharp. He was going from door to door asking about a woman named Emily. When he spotted me, he froze for a second, and then joy exploded in his eyes. "Emily, I finally found you." He hurried toward me. I instinctively stepped back, looking at him coldly. "What are you doing here?" My indifference froze the smile on his face. Frowning with displeasure, he said, "What am I doing here? I'm looking for my wife. What else would I be doing? You ran off without a word. Do you know how much effort it took for me to find you?" "I'm not your wife," I said flatly. We have nothing to do with each other anymore. Nonsense. I never agreed to a divorce. You'll always be my wife, David snapped, grabbing my arm. Let go. I struggled hard. Neighbors around us began gathering, pointing and whispering. Emily, this your man? Handsome fellow. Couples quarrel, huh? Happens to everyone. Go home together, you two. Don't make a scene. Hearing these comments, David's face lit up with pride. He tried to drag me away. Come with me. Stop making a fool of yourself out here. I'm not going anywhere. I clung tightly to the doorframe of the courtyard and shouted, David, I'll say it again. I want a divorce. In your dreams. Our argument drew even more people over. Right then, a deep, steady voice cut through the noise. Let go of her. I turned around and saw a tall man standing behind us. At some point, he had walked right up without anyone noticing. He wore a simple white shirt and dark trousers, his presence calm and imposing, his gaze sharp. It was Ray, my neighbor. I only knew he was a businessman, someone who rarely appeared. When we crossed paths in the past, we only exchanged small nods. I never expected him to step in now. David looked him up and down, hostility and alertness flashing in his eyes. Who are you? What does our marital issue have to do with you? He told you to let go. Didn't you hear? Ray's voice wasn't loud, but it carried an undeniable pressure. David's grip loosened instinctively under the weight of Ray's presence. I immediately moved behind Ray, rubbing the arm David had hurt. Emily, get over here. David barked. What's your relationship with this man? His face was flushed red with rage and humiliation. I hadn't even spoken yet when Ray answered calmly. I'm her landlord. Comrade, if you're harassing my tenant, I'll have no choice but to call the police. Call the police? David looked at him as if he'd heard the world's funniest joke. She's my wife. I'm looking for my wife. What's there to call the police for? Being a husband gives you the right to force her, Ray countered. David was instantly stunned into silence. The neighbors watching nearby finally began to understand the situation, and the tide turned. That's right, talk things out. Why are you grabbing her? Look at the poor girl, she's pale from fear. David's face flushed, then paled, then flushed again. He knew he wasn't going to win this one today. He shot me a vicious glare, then gave Ray another hostile look before spitting out, Emily, just wait. With that, he stormed off angrily. The commotion finally settled. I turned to Ray and said gratefully, Thank you, Ray. He simply nodded and said, If he comes again, call me. Then he turned and went back home. Watching his tall figure disappear, a small warmth rippled in my heart, but I also knew David wouldn't let this go so easily. I had to finalize the divorce as soon as possible. I hired a lawyer, paid him, and had him write a detailed complaint. I included everything about David and Lena, as well as how he and his family had treated me. Then I mailed it directly to the disciplinary department of David's military unit. I wanted to cut the grass at its roots. If he cared so much about his future and his reputation, then I would be the one to ruin both. After doing all this, I stopped thinking about David entirely and threw myself fully into my clothing business. My business grew steadily, from a small night market stall to renting an actual storefront. I officially put up a sign reading, Emily's Apparel. My designs were fresh and fashionable, and the quality was excellent. It didn't take long for my name to spread throughout Shenzhen. Clothing vendors from other provinces came just to buy my pieces in bulk. My life became busy and fulfilling. During this time, Ray helped me a lot. He arranged someone to supervise the renovation of my shop. The first time I negotiated with out-of-town wholesalers and didn't understand contracts, he went through every clause with me. We gradually became familiar with each other. I learned more about him. He had left the military and moved into the business world, dealing in building materials. He was honest and steady. He never asked about my past, but whenever I ran into trouble, he was always the first person to show up. My feelings for him slowly began to change without me even realizing it. About 2 months later, I received a letter from back home. It was written by a distant cousin. She said the military had approved my divorce request. Because of conduct issues, David had been issued a major demerit. His promising promotion was canceled, and in frustration, he applied to leave the service and return home. Linda, furious that her son's future was ruined, took it all out on Lena, cursing her every day and calling her a walking disaster. Lena finally couldn't stand it anymore. She had a huge fight with Linda and moved back to her own family. David's family completely fell apart. Reading the letter, I didn't feel the joy I had once imagined. Instead, I felt a deep, quiet relief. The people who had once caused me so much pain had finally received the consequences they deserved. And I could finally say goodbye to the past completely and begin my new life. Time flew, and 3 years passed. Emily's Apparel was no longer just a small storefront. I bought a 3-story commercial property on the busiest street in Shenzhen. I opened my own clothing factory and launched my own brand, QS. My products were now being sold all across the country. I went from someone who started with nothing to becoming Ms. Emily, a name people spoke with respect. And naturally, Ray and I got together. The day he proposed, there were no flowers, no ring, nothing extravagant. It was just an ordinary evening. He looked at me seriously and said, "Emily, give me a chance. Let me take care of you for the rest of my life." I smiled as tears fell down my face. In this lifetime, I had finally found happiness that truly belonged to me. Our wedding was simple, with only a few close friends. After we married, Ray merged his business with my company and fully supported my career. With the two of us working together, our business grew bigger and bigger. I thought I would never see anyone from David's family again, until that day. As a representative entrepreneur, I went to Guangzhou to attend an investment promotion conference. After the meeting ended, I waited for my car at the hotel entrance, when a familiar yet strange figure suddenly caught my eye. It was a woman, disheveled, clothes torn, hair dry and yellowed, face exhausted and lifeless, being pushed out by the hotel security guards. Please let me in. I'm looking for someone, really. I'm looking for someone," she begged. I stared at her for a long time before I finally recognized her. It was Lena, the once delicate, radiant, soft-spoken Lena. How had she become like this? She seemed to notice me too. She stared blankly at me, disbelief filling her eyes. Emily." I didn't respond. I just looked at her calmly. The moment she recognized me, she lunged toward me like someone grabbing onto a life-saving rope. "Emily, it's really you. Please help me, lend me some money, please, just a little." The security guards immediately held her back. "It's fine," I told them. "Let her come." I stepped closer and asked coolly, "Why are you looking for me?" Her eyes flicked over my tailored designer suit, then down at her own filthy, torn clothes. Shame, envy, and resentment tangled in her gaze. My cousin and I, we're not doing well." From her broken, sobbing words, I pieced together what had happened these past few years. After leaving the military, David fell into complete ruin. He became addicted to drinking and gambling. Linda couldn't bear the blow. She had a stroke and became bedridden. Their savings disappeared within months, and David racked up huge gambling debts. Lena's parents refused to let her marry David, calling the family a burden, but she was blinded by his sweet talk and ran away with him anyway. Without my money supporting them, David's true nature surfaced quickly. He had no patience or tenderness left for Lena. Whenever he got drunk, he beat her. The two of them fled south to Shenzhen hoping to strike gold, but because they were lazy and incompetent, they could only find temporary construction jobs, living day to day without stability. Earlier that day, Lena had seen my photo and a business article about me in the newspaper. It was only then she realized I had become a major entrepreneur. So she came looking for me, hoping I would remember our past ties and help them. Past ties. The word made me laugh. "What past ties do I have with you?" No, Miss Emily," she corrected herself immediately. "I know I was wrong before. I was blinded by temptation. Please, for the sake of you and David being husband and wife once." I cut her off. "David and I have had nothing to do with each other for a long time. As for you, I was never close to you to begin with. Emily, how can you be so heartless?" Seeing that I wasn't moved by pity or guilt, Lena became desperate. She finally tore off her mask and screamed, "If you hadn't been so heartless back then, how would we have ended up like this? Now that you're successful, you look down on us, don't you? Your money should have included our share to begin with." I looked at her face, twisted by panic and resentment, and all I felt was pity, mixed with ridicule. Even now, she still blamed the world, blaming others for her misfortune instead of herself. I pulled several 100 yuan bills from my wallet and threw them at her feet. "This money isn't for you. It's for your train ticket home. Don't let me see you again. Without another glance, I turned and headed for the car that had long been waiting. Ray opened the door and gently helped me in. As the car pulled away, I saw through the rearview mirror Lena collapsing onto the ground, grabbing the money one moment, cursing at our car the next, like a complete lunatic. I looked away and leaned on Ray's shoulder. "It's all over now," he whispered as he took my hand. I nodded and closed my eyes. Yes, everything was over. The nightmare of my past life had long scattered into smoke. In this lifetime, I had a husband who loved me, a career I fought for, a bright and dazzling future. Outside the window, the city lights flickered on like a glittering river of stars. I knew the best years of my life had only just begun.